Why could Zohran Mamdani's election win have Trump celebrating? I think that Mamdani is Trump. There's almost no difference between them. Although certain progressives around the world have celebrated, this could actually be really helping Trump win and stay in power in the long run. He is a disorderer who is running on charisma and things that sound good. But Mamdani wasn't the only triumphant Democrat last week. Centrist candidates won in Virginia and New Jersey. So we have to ask, is Mamdani really the only way to beat Trump? If we can channelize some of the things on affordability, some of the things on the correct use of TikTok and Instagram, a concrete and consistent message can unite people from Gretchen Whitmer to Gavin Newsom all the way to the people who support Mamdani. We can channel them into a center-left or centrist candidate. But Jane says in Trump's America, you can't ignore identity entirely.
Is it a society where human rights matters? Is it a society where migrants are part of the American dream?
So what's next for the Dems after November 4th's victories? Let's order the disorder. Hello, mega orderers. I am dressed, for those who are watching on YouTube, in all blue to celebrate what was a real wave election, not only in the gubernatorial races in New Jersey and Virginia, but in the redistricting, Prop 50 in California, and in the New York Mayoral Election. So it is a great honor to be back with the co-host with the mostest to unpack these issues. Hello, Jane.
Hello, Jason. Hello, mega orderers. I think it's a good day to talk about democracy.
If you are not a member of the Mega Orderers Club, you won't be getting this episode until our regular Tuesday slot. So that's your reminder that if you want to get these things as soon as they come out, you should become a member of the Mega Orderers Club for ad-free listening and instant release of late-breaking episodes. The link to join the Mega Orderers Club is in the show notes. But so to the issues at hand, Jane, what are your takeaways before we jump into mine?
So I have seen much more about the election of Zohran Mamdani than about any of the other candidates, and that's probably true for many of us here in Europe because we know New York, and the Mamdani appeal is something that probably translates a bit better into European politics. And, taking a step back from it, I'm also wondering sort of why we have this kind of globalization of local politics at the moment. Maybe that's something that we can talk about.
It has to do with the enduring disorder. Everything is globalized.
Everything is globalized. My worry is sometimes some of that's rather superficial. I mean, from what I could see from across the pond, Zohran Mamdani ran a campaign that was really important and significant for left-wing parties around the world because of how he leaned into bread and butter, affordability, cost of living issues, but he also had this unapologetic way of being, I am a Muslim socialist, I'm pro-Palestinian, I'm all the things that you warned Barack Obama might secretly be, and I'm unapologetic about it. So the comms, the style, the attitude is all very relevant. It's just a bit odd as well, because I think here in the UK, for many in the left, his election is a moment for celebration and excitement. But
oh,
maybe
God, I'm sorry to cut you off. Anyone who's celebrating, man, are they going to get their comeuppance. This is the most double-edged thing on the absolute planet because Mamdani is from central casting of the Republicans' wet dream of who they can run against. I am so worried about this man.
I mean, this is a huge dilemma for the left as well. In different contexts, like how much do you lean into being unapologetically left-wing? How much do you actually say, look, for example, if you're pro-immigration, I am pro-immigration and proud? Or how much do you try to get to the centre and win people over? And it's so fascinating right now because I think there are a lot of floating voters, people who could be converted to supporting different political parties, and yet at the same time politics seems to be rewarding people that are more radical and more towards political extremes with bigger, ambitious promises.
And this is the Disorder Program. So I think that we should do something slightly differently than just someone who's listening to the Daily from the New York Times. We're going to tell you the larger conceptual things here, which is that the enduring disorder is a period that drives people to extremes, and it drives issues to be cross-cutting, whereby because there's this Israel-Gaza war going on, which has almost nothing to do with the real issues that the mayor of New York can deal with, there's somehow an ability to mobilize based on that. And because Trump has become a reality TV show president, he has, in a way, called into being a reality TV show mayor who is famous for taking selfies with anyone who wants to and for doing his little vox pops where he goes around and he shoots videos with just the regular voter. Just wanted to get you on my Insta account. To me, this is going down to their level. There's a huge contrast here where Abigail Spanberger, who won in Virginia, and Mikey Sherrill, who won in my home state of New Jersey, where I voted for her very proudly. These are the people that I want to see. They're female, centrist, national security Democrats. You know, Sherrill was a helicopter fighter pilot. Spanberger worked in government, and they were able to stick it to Trump, but do so from the authenticity of where they're coming from. And the danger, of course, with Mamdani is it's not just that he's not from New York. He wasn't even born in the U.S., right? He is the first mayor since 1776, the first mayor, and there have been 68 from 1776 until now to not be born in America, the first mayor of our largest city. And it's like, oh my God, we already have a crisis of nativism. And now we've handed to them on a silver platter. You know what I mean? Obama wasn't a Muslim and he was born in America. They just accused him of not being. They accused him of being a Muslim but of not being born in America. And now we've served up for them a guy who has described himself who wants to globalize the Intifada and was not born in America and is a Muslim. And his father was a professor of post-colonial studies and worked with Edward Said at Columbia. I think I've met the father even. Oh my God. I cannot believe it, Jane. It's like, what the absolute beep.
But this is the crux of the issue, really, isn't it? Because this is, should we say someone who's an immigrant shouldn't have that role because the right won't like it? Or should we say, actually, this is showing that that old idea of the American dream where someone could come from anywhere and rise to top office is real and it can do good things?
I believe in immigration. I also believe in assimilation. I also believe in where we're at. America's not ready for a woman president. I wish it was. I voted for female presidents whenever they've been on the ballot, right? I didn't think it was a great idea to put forward Hillary or Harris. Podcast listeners are well aware of this. I worked in the Sanders campaign. I obviously was really against Harris. I wanted to see a much more centrist Buttigieg-style candidate. This is where we are now. But why give our opponents the typecast version of what they have claimed the Democratic Party is? And then just the worst bit is his disordering tendencies. Like, he must know that he can't have a rent freezing policy that's going to work. That's been tried and failed for the last 40 years. We already have a broken rent control situation. Everyone who's ever rented an apartment in Manhattan knows that rent control is the reason that your upper middle class grandma lives in her 4-bedroom apartment in one of the rooms and the cat lives in 3 rooms. And then her upper middle class kids inherit the rent controlled apartment. Rent control is one of the exact reasons why New York is so unequal. We are trying everything that has been proven to fail. There's this great meme going around. Yesterday's election for Realtor of Florida for 2026 has been won. Zohran Mamdani wins Florida Realtor of the Year 2026. Very nice. Because we both know that the real estate prices are shooting up in Palm Beach right now. And it's like, oh my God, I can't believe we've allowed this to happen.
Well, there's something for Trump to be pleased about today, so that's nice. Something for everybody.
I think this is his nocturnal wet dream. He must love this.
But is it really, I mean, is it worse to have somebody that is actually challenging you from the left? Or is it worse to have someone
He's not
that is
challenging
a
him. He has
carbon
no
copy?
governing experience. He's 34.
No, sure. And we need to put it in perspective that basically he's been elected as a mayor of New York, and New York is a very specific place, and it's a bit like London electing a very different left-wing character, Ken Livingstone, as the mayor. There are urban voters in a capital city that just are going to be different from the rest of the
I want to make some
country.
key differences, though, that, again, listeners may not know. The mayor of New York has far more powers than the mayor of London. The mayor of New York controls a 100,000-person bureaucracy. The mayor of New York controls hundreds of billions of dollars of budget and has powers over things far beyond transport. He sets tax policy. He does a whole range of other things. That's not what the mayor of London does. So Londoners may get the wrong impression here. Whatever you think of Sadiq Khan, he isn't controlling the tax policy that you and I pay. There's councillors, there's
Right.
the role of Westminster. All of that is non-equivalent. And then the key thing is, I didn't love Ken Livingstone, but he was qualified for the job. This is a 34-year-old who's never had an employee in his life. And we're having him run arguably the most sophisticated and most complex city in the capitalist world when he has no executive experience. I would be less worried if an equivalent character was elected mayor of London. You really just have to fight crime and do transport in London. That's all the mayor does. He doesn't set tax policy. He doesn't make the education curriculum. It's not at all the same. It's confusing to people that it has the same term. LaGuardia and the Roosevelts were national figures. Obviously, Giuliani. This is a position which is much more important than being governor of Wyoming in terms of our national life. And I don't mind that he's from the left, but they could have just had an American who has run a large company and has proven to provide health care and make things work. And you know what I mean? Yeah. So I am terrified that we are going to be in 2027 dealing with the reality TV show of ICE agents running rampage in New York and all of the TikTok memes of Trump versus this guy where he's losing and the National Guard is being called in.
Yeah. Just on the point about an American and being born abroad, what about Arnold Schwarzenegger? Very popular, very impactful governor.
Yeah.
He was born in
He
Austria.
was centrist. And when he ran for that position, I would argue he had accomplished stuff in his life. He was someone who was not only already famous, he had married someone from the Kennedy clan. He had become a part of the establishment. There was no fear that, who is this outsider clown? You might have said he was a clown because he's just an actor, but he had done something with his life. I'm also going to make another difference here. Of course, I love the assimilative power of America, but not for the mayor of New York. It really means something to be a New Yorker. And we've already seen a situation where, when I was a kid, the majority of New Yorkers at least had parents who were born in New York.
Most Londoners were born outside London, such as me. And for me, talking about London, part of the joy of being a Londoner is that you are a Londoner. It doesn't matter that I was born outside London in Scotland. It is an identity that is open to people that have moved here because that's what London's about. I would have thought New York was the same, no?
I think that for people who come from Ohio and live there for 10 or 15 years, they feel that they're New Yorkers. But for those of us who have both of our parents, and in my case, almost all of my grandparents, 3 out of 4 grandparents born in Manhattan, not just New York, we feel a certain way about the city, and the city has changed too rapidly. I think that, again, there's a difference here that Brits may not be able to grasp. The pace of change in New York relative to London is completely different. Nearly every restaurant that I liked in high school and when I was in college no longer exists. In London, things change, but the restaurant that you liked from the 1990s is still likely to be there. Not all of them, but some. Rental prices, they've gone up, but they haven't skyrocketed the way they have.
Oh, try renting. I mean, it's a nightmare.
No. There are statistics. We can put this in the show notes. America, right? People work more hours. Things are changing much, much, much quicker. I would just say that whatever you think the pace of change here is in London, either demographically or in terms of prices, New York is all of that, but on steroids. No one who studies the issues facing New Yorkers, even on the left, would come up with his policy proposals. These are not within the range of policy proposals. These are the proposals guaranteed to make the Florida economy benefit. My sense of just complete doom, I think, is not being covered because people see it as a blue wave.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that, like, I have no idea about rent controls in New York, but when you think about free buses or free childcare, like, those are things that exist in many European capitals. And so they just don't seem scary in the same way. You might agree or disagree with them, but they're not sort of radically mold-breaking. I think
I'm happy with free buses, but do it in a way where Jamie Dimon doesn't say he's going to be moving the headquarters to Texas. Do it in a way where you're not causing nearly all the big corporates have said, as this has been happening, we've been investing in our Texas and Florida and California offices. It's a question of Corbyn as opposed to a more normal left-wing candidate.
So let's get into why people have voted for him. Is it partly because Andrew Cuomo ran one of the worst campaigns ever and he was a classic predecessor who everyone's fed?
Eric Adams has been involved in not only a corruption scandal, but he took money from the Turkish government, right? So he's in a Trumpian-style bribery scandal. He's then taken support from Trump. Before him, we had de Blasio. So it's not like we haven't had left-wing mayors. De Blasio was extremely left-wing. He's proposed most of the things that Zohran Mamdani is proposing, even, more extreme versions of, and they didn't work under de Blasio, and they caused capital flight from New York. Again, none of this is new. Cuomo has all his sex scandals. He then really made a hash of it during the pandemic. I cannot grasp how the establishment Democrats would donate for him and allow him to be the candidate. This is running Hillary, but a worse version of Hillary. I cannot grasp it. I mean, I hate Cuomo more than I hate Mamdani, right? Cuomo represents everything that's gone wrong in the Democratic Party. We lost to Trump because of people like Cuomo, where a significant portion of the electorate can look at Cuomo and Trump and say, I can't see the difference. It's all inside baseball. His father was this, his brother is that, and he's benefited from this advantage and that advantage, and he's cheated on this and that. It's like, oh my God.
I think it's super interesting. It's been so easy to land blows on him. And one of the first of the videos that I saw of Mamdani that went around the world was him just listing the bad stuff Andrew Cuomo had done and then reminding him how to spell his name. It was powerful comms. So I think it is quite hard from a distance to really get into the substance and the detail of policies and how they work in each city. And that's something that worries me slightly, that those actual nuances about reality and policy making get lost. But Mamdani did an absolutely brilliant comms campaign.
He did a brilliant comms campaign for under 45s. He won the under 45s by 2/3. But I don't think that the under 45s are what we need to win the midterms or to win in 2028. So this is the problem. It's a niche appeal. I want to hear if you think that there are larger lessons here, but I think that the lessons are from Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger, and the scandal of the Virginia Attorney General was overcome. We managed to win the Virginia Attorney General, even though he had talked about shooting his opponent and had compared various people to Nazis and all of that. But if we put Jones aside and we just look at Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill, we've seen, to my mind, the future of the Democratic Party. And it's an Alyssa Slotkin-style Democratic Party where people have come from the Army and the CIA, but they understand that taxes need to be higher and we need to work with our allies and we need to deal with the affordability crisis. Yeah. And I think running white women candidates who have national security credentials but are on the center left on values topics and really stand up for women against the desire to take away their reproductive rights is a great message. I was of the view that Gretchen Whitmer, rather than Kamala Harris, should have been the candidate. And I feel very justified because these candidates more map for me onto the Gretchen Whitmer type perspective, but maybe better because they were less polarizing. They're really straight down the middle without any of the baggage of some of the other options. So I'm really psyched. And I'm even, I would say, more psyched about Prop 50 in California because, and to give the background to the listeners, it's not just Texas, but also Ohio and North Carolina have passed redistricting, which are really gerrymandering laws, where, the joke about gerrymandering, instead of voters choosing their representatives, the representatives choose their voters. And in those Republican states, they have gone full on, we're going to create squiggly lines and whatever to get these 52% Republican districts to be able to win the 2026 midterm, to get as many congresspeople as possible. And the Dems have until now done nothing back. They haven't said, we're going to play by the same rules and we're going to show that we can play power politics. And now Newsom stepped up to the plate and he redistricted the 5 number of seats, the exact same amount that Texas has redistricted. And this makes it a fair-ish playing field for 2026, but I think we need to go more. We need New York and New Jersey and elsewhere to redistrict because Ohio and North Carolina, in other words, California can cancel out Texas, but we need more. And this shows that voters, it was more than 60%. So some non-Democrats said that this is the right thing to do because they see if it's, no holds barred, the gloves are off, then it's no hold bars and the gloves are off. And I really hope that Newsom parlays this forward and lays out an agenda of what it looks like to confront Trump and not to sit back and say, we're not going to do anything about it. You've got to get on the front foot.
You've got such a vast and diverse country that in a way it is incredible that you can have coherent national political parties. And I think that right now, both of the parties are struggling with that. And the Republicans are dealing with it essentially by having a Republican king who just does what he wants and centralizing power. But the Democrats are, I think, struggling with being such a broad church. So can you have a party that is going to accommodate the centrist candidates that you've talked about, but also harness some of the energy that people like Mamdani, but also like AOC and Sanders are bringing into it? I don't know if that is possible. You've got a very different situation from, European countries that are dealing with much smaller populations. And I don't
think it's that different. I think one of the things about the enduring disorder is that the dynamics are the same everywhere. It's about immigration, taxes, cost of living. These are not strange issues. Any Brit who would say, what are the 5 things you care about? Cost of living, migration, Ukraine, Gaza, AI. It's the same issues. I would just argue that the difference is that we don't have a cohesive national party, right? You pay money to join the Labour Party, or the Lib Dems, or the SDP or CDU or the Moderaterna in Sweden, and they choose a candidate list. And we don't have that. The Democratic Party is not something that you pay a membership for, and hence it is more centrifugal. That's my fear, and we need to do message discipline. The elites of the party, to my mind, have not been able to pull the strings. They're accused of running a conspiracy, and the irony is that they don't conspire enough because they didn't conspire to get Biden out when they should have. They haven't conspired about how to handle Mamdani. Obama and Chuck Schumer have taken opposite positions, right? So there's no conspiracy at all. It's just a free-for-all. I'd like us to get some message discipline and to say, these are the 4 things that we care about. And Gavin Newsom and Pete Buttigieg, and now our new superstars, Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger, are going to have their weekly press conference.
Right, and they need serious agendas on cost of living, international trade and alliances. Obviously, that interests me as an outsider, but it is critical. Economic growth, and how do people get to feel those benefits of economic growth? They need to learn from the fact that Harris had very, very little to say about inflation. I think that they are going to struggle coming up with coherent affordability policies with such a broad church in the party. But something that, as an outsider, I liked seeing about the Mamdani campaign is that it wasn't mainly about identity politics. Yes, he did outreach where he did videos in different languages. He eats street food with his hands because he's celebrating different identities. But a lot of what he is talking about is cost of living, going down to talk to the food vendors about why it's expensive to run a food truck and how you could cut the red tape. Equally something that a Robert Jenrick could jump on. It's not particularly an ideological issue. It's pro-small business, pro-entrepreneurs. But it seems concrete.
I think that that's all window dressing, Jane. I think that Mamdani is Trump. There's almost no difference between them. As I put in my Substack, he is a disorderer who is running on charisma and things that sound good. Do you know what I mean? And TikTok videos of eating with your hands, saying that he's going to fix the affordability crisis. I think it's important for us just to repivot and to say, in New Jersey and Virginia, even in Republican districts, the direction was to the Democrats, right? If we look at those, what are called heat maps, Middlesex County swung back 17 points towards the Dems in this gubernatorial election. That's very, very meaningful. But then you have more Republican places, like when you go down the shore in Ocean County or in Monmouth County. Yes, they still voted Republican, but 8-9 points more Democratic than they had been in 2024. And in Southern Virginia, that's always going to be Republican. The directionality of those arrows has been to the Democrats. And that's very, very good. The government shutdown and Doge, particularly, in Virginia, where everyone has lost their jobs working for the federal government, those things show that Trump's agenda has not worked. And then if you pivot to New Jersey, we have had only 2 tunnels for my whole lifetime, pretty much from World War II until now. There have been 2 tunnels between New Jersey and New York. Under Chris Christie, there were discussions about having another one. And then there have been more discussions, and then there's the idea of the 3rd tunnel, and then there's more and more traffic, and there's more and more crises. Trump has deliberately undercut the federal monies to try to make another tunnel. Candidates like Jack Ciattarelli, who tied himself to Trump and didn't even confront Trump about his pulling the federal funding for the tunnel, got hammered. And the takeaways, to me, are extremely clear. You run the centrist anti-Trump thing without the pitfalls of falling into the left-wing identity politics, and that running from the center is going to work. Do you see it differently, Jane?
I do think that the identity politics that has characterized the Democrats over the last campaign has backfired. You see a big backlash against it, and it's partly because it seems often quite superficial. Americans seem not to like the phrase DEI, but when people are polled or interviewed about whether they like diversity or equality, they do like those things. But it's that sense of a particular interpretation of identity politics, which is seen as politically correct and totally ignores class and affordability, and has lots of very privileged people saying that there should be more sort of very superficial diversity, but without answering real problems. But there are going to be issues of identity and values that are at the core of politics in the US and in the rest of the world when we are talking about, is it a society where human rights matters? Is it a society where migrants are part of the American dream? Can we live with a society where certain human beings are just disposable and can be disappeared, in plain sight by ununiformed ICE agents just grabbing them off the streets? So there is going to be something about identity, but it needs to be inclusive and it needs to be unifying. I'm still thinking over the very interesting thing you said, that Mamdani is Trump, that it will definitely annoy everybody, which is brilliant. But, there is a lot of truth to that. I think many, many politicians are learning from Trump and Trump's communication style. And I think here in the UK, to some extent, they are also learning from Nigel Farage. Because they are looking at, okay, why are these people successful? We do not want to wholly imitate them, but we are interested in seeing if there are some things that we can learn. That's not necessarily all bad. Trump has got some skills in communicating.
It is all bad, because to me, Zach Polanski is Nigel Farage. The things that we're facing right now is an attack on the very fundamental nature of our way of life, Jane. We need to rally together. We can't just rally our side. And I see the Polanskis and Mamdanis of this world as so off-putting to the independent centrist, the Remainer Tory, and Lincoln Project Republican.
Polanski
has self-proclaimed himself as a democratic socialist. And if you're American, socialist is not as much of a curse word in Europe as it is in the States.
No, we
It's
have
a
socialist
fucking
government.
curse word. We just can't have it because I want to maintain our democracy and not end up with King Vance.
I still remember being in New York in the early 2000s in a bar and talking to someone who was a massive fan of Tony Blair, who was the Prime Minister then, and we were talking a bit about Britain. And her face when she learned from me that Tony Blair was in favour of socialised healthcare. Because she had just seen him visiting the US and being side by side with the US and had no idea like how crazy we were with our mental NHS. Socialism means something different and has a different place between the two sides of the pond.
Yeah, but if you had said single payer, she would have accepted it.
Maybe.
It's just the question of like, I wouldn't call what I want in the US socialized medicine, but I do want single payer. I'm a complete believer in single payer healthcare, which we don't have, and I blame Obama for not getting us over the line to single payer. You're right. It goes back to the Churchill quote, we're two peoples divided by a common language.
I think there's an important place for Mamdani and Polanski in the political scene. They are not going to be the president or the prime minister. And I think it's interesting because obviously Mamdani is in one of the two mainstream parties. Zach Polanski is leading the Green Party, and the role of the Green Party has always been to shift the political debate. It has never been a party that has been a party of government, but it has historically had a success in helping to get other parties to put green issues on the agenda. And I know many people over the years that have voted for the Green Party because they want to essentially be heard on this issue of climate transition needs to be on the agenda of all parties. So, the Green Party is increasing its membership. It's not going to be a government, but it is able to inject ideas and points into the debate.
We don't need Mamdani to inject ideas that have been proven to fail. And this is the Disorder podcast that are disordering. The very nature of those ideas, I would argue, are meant to exacerbate the problems that they claim to solve.
Are they meant to?
Yes, I would say they are. I think that Trump knows that his ICE agents will not fix the migration issue. You can't deport your way out of this problem.
Right.
And if he had wanted to build the wall, he would have built it already. If he had wanted to have bipartisan migration reform, he would have allowed it. I believe that Mamdani knows if you want to raise more tax revenue, you have to work with corporate America in Manhattan. You can't just come in there guns blazing and saying, I'm going to pull all this socialism. It's Manhattan, buddy. The policies are meant to fail to prove that, you know what? The mean capitalist bad guy is there and needs to be tackled. Or, to use his language, when you see the boot of the NYPD on your neck, it has been laced with the IDF. That is, of course, his famous quote. It makes no sense. This is the very essence of disorder. This rhetoric is meant to divide and meant to fail. The shittier it gets, the more he's likely to win his next term. It's disorder for disorder's sake. So I'm doubling and tripling down that he really is Trump. He doesn't want to fix any of the things that he claims to want to fix. He's an intersectionalist. And I believe I shared it a few episodes ago, a fascinating biography of him in an Apple News podcast. Sadly, if you're not an Apple News Plus subscriber, you can't listen to it, and we don't violate copyright here, unfortunately. But it was a great biography which shows some of the intellectual influences, not only Foucault and Said and Derrida, but some of the more revolutionary of the intersectionalist, Leninist ways of thinking about these problems. So I take a man at his word when he says things like globalize the intifada, and when you have the boot of the NYPD on your neck, it is laced by the IDF, Jane.
Bringing it back to disorder, I mean, I think it does reflect a sense that obviously a bunch of voters are going for here and elsewhere, that the old order is crumbling and isn't working anymore. Do you try to shore up that old order? Do you try to regenerate it? do you try to replace it with something altogether different?
We need something new, Jane, but that's why it's so great to talk this through with you. We saw what worked in New Jersey and Virginia, and those are places that have the ethnic makeup close to the country. New York has an ethnic, demographic, and socioeconomic makeup much closer to Copenhagen or to London than it does to Ohio or Michigan or the places that we really need to win, Pennsylvania. I like the idea of it's out in the open now, and we've seen what works from AOC and Sanders, what works from Mamdani. We've got a year to the midterms. There are lessons to be learned. There's good mojo. If we can channelize some of the things on affordability, some of the things on the correct use of TikTok and Instagram, and get a concrete and consistent message that can unite people from Gretchen Whitmer to Gavin Newsom all the way to the people who support Mamdani and are not going to vote for a Republican, we can channel them into a center-left or centrist candidate. And we have an opportunity. Yeah. I have no issue with Mamdani's voters. I just want to make this really clear, Jane. You and I disagree in a healthy amount, agreeably, mostly, about issues.
Always.
But we want order, and the order that we envision, correct me if I'm wrong, is one where the wealthy are taxed more, NATO is a stronger place, and people are regulating things like climate change and AI and thinking for the future, rather than just saying, let the corporations deal with it, you know? I think that the message is so simple. Why get lost on the micropolitics here? The message is so bloody simple. We've learned some things that work from some of these Mamdani supporters. We've learned some things that work from the Virginia governor. We've learned some things from Alyssa Slotkin. We learned some things from the California Prop 50. We've learned a lot about how Gavin Newsom has gone on the offensive rather than being passive to Trump. Let's just synergize it. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to, because I'm already being controversial this episode, I believe that the candidate and the spokesperson for this stuff needs to be a white heterosexual Christian. It doesn't need to be a man. I think it can be a woman. But America isn't ready. Do we want to go down this route again and then find, oh, we screwed up. We didn't realize how racist people still are.
Yeah. In
our attempt to prove that they're not racist, we lost our democracy. Oops.
Two things. So firstly, I completely agree with you about taking the bits that work. I think it's really good that Mamdani's making viral videos where he goes and talks to random people on the street for Vox Pops. What we don't want repeated from Trump and others is, politicians just making completely false promises that can never be delivered. So some kind of smushing together of the comm skills of a Mamdani with Gordon Brown in the background, who should never be doing viral videos,
Gretchen
but is really good, and Gretchen Whitmer, so that there is something to back up the comms. And it is tricky because we are in this time that people seem to trust charismatic individuals when it is actually teams and institutions that tend to make the difference.
Jane made a key point that I neglected to mention in my diatribe against Mamdani. It's his anti-expert approach. I wouldn't mind if they had an intellectual commission of economists study the problem of affordability in Manhattan, which, by the way, is a crisis. I sold my apartment there because you can't really live in Manhattan on a normal person's salary. And if they had this commission and it came up with, we need to do this and this about busing and whatever, okay, great. He's demonized the establishment and experts in his communications at exactly the time when we need to defend the experts against Trump's onslaught. We can't double or triple down on the failed establishment like Cuomo and Clinton and Harris, but we can't be falling prey to there's an expert conspiracy. The experts have made your rent grow up. The experts have made your rent go up.
Wealthy experts, right? Buying their mansions.
Jane, if only experts could make enough money to buy anything in Manhattan. I don't know any professional experts who can afford even a studio.
I mean, you could buy a cup of coffee, maybe, if you're lucky. Might be able to stretch to half a $30 cocktail, and then you head out to Brooklyn.
So I want to order the disorder with you, Jane. I like energy and I like motivation and inclusion, but I don't like it at the expense of anti-populism. So when I say that Mamdani is Trump, it's that he has attacked the experts and that he has attacked from a populist, everything is broken, I am the change you want to see, rather than a let's go back to the antebellum pre-Trump when things kind of worked days. I'm going to fuse Bloomberg with a better version of de Blasio. Do you know what I mean? It's a question of what the appeal is.
Well, he can't go back to the pre-Trump, BT before Trump era, because now he's going to have to live with Trump. And as you say, that could well see, really difficult clashes with ICE. It could see real power struggles over the security forces that are actually on the streets of New York City, struggles over money, all of that. So he needs to be smart and mature enough to recognize that he can't deal with all that stuff on his own, that he will need to have an incredibly good team that does include experts around him, and he will need the support of the party. Even if many of them dislike him, whatever, they now need to form a united front, because there is a very high risk of Trump picking a confrontation with him. Maybe it's a certainty of Trump picking a confrontation with him. He doesn't have much experience. He does have charisma. He does have support, but he is really going to need to work with the party and with a really solid team beyond slogans to navigate this stuff. What do you think?
I hope that he's up for the challenge, because if he flops, it's really, really dangerous. We need him to succeed and move to the center and be willing to work with people that he disagrees with. If he becomes my worst fear and the Florida Realtors award him the 2026 Florida Realtor of the Year award, we're in for real trouble, because the demographic and social and economic change that will entail will allow MAGA people to say, when we told you it was the clash of civilizations, and you said, but no, Biden is just a regular white Catholic, what are you talking about? Now they'll be able to say, look, it is the clash of civilizations. These people are not really Americans. I mean, I believe that no matter how insane your opponent is, you have to try to understand his concerns. So I don't hate the Trump voters, Jane.
Sure.
If they're uncomfortable that their neighborhoods look quite different than when they grew up in them, and they're very uncomfortable that people don't speak as good English at their local diner and barbershop, those are real concerns. We need to try to work on those concerns. And we don't want to play into their fears about urban change. I don't think that the answer to defeat right-wing populism is left-wing populism.
Maybe we can rename populists as pseudo-populists, because they are claiming to be representing the people and doing the stuff that benefits the people. But the problem is that they aren't. The problem is that they have made up a certain idea of one monolithic people, which usually doesn't completely exist, and they're promising a bunch of things that they will never deliver to those people. No problem with politicians seeking election talking to people and trying to give people things that they need and they repeatedly express desire for. It's really the concern that we're expressing is not that they want to engage with the public and respond to public opinion. It's that it's superficial and fails to deliver.
That's the whole point of this podcast. I say that they're neo-populists. Call it pseudo-populists. Go back to episode 3. We'll put the link in the show notes. The point is, neo-populists say that they're going to help the people, get into office, and then cut taxes on billionaires, like Trump, and then make sure that jobs leave the country, because his economic policies make it impossible to manufacture anything because there's too much tariffs. And you can't get the Canadian automotive parts which are needed for our manufacturing jobs. On the left-wing side, it's do a range of steps that chase all the jobs out of New York. So we couldn't be more in agreement. I want to help the people by actually consulting the experts who know about climate change and AI and house building, and not just saying, oh, it sounds really great. Everyone could have a free house. Vote for me. Apartments on Central Park West for everyone.
I do want a free apartment on Central Park West, Jason, so your pitch is appealing to me. People join the Mega Orderers Club. One day, Jane will at least be able to afford that cocktail in Brooklyn.
Please join the Mega Orderers Club. You get these kind of episodes ad-free and as soon as they are ready to roll. And given these disordered times, we need your support. What else should the listeners do, Jane?
Check out our YouTube. Now all the episodes are available on video and we have a bunch of cool video shorts. And please like us, rate us, share us with your friends. We also have a Substack. The link for that is also in the show notes.
If you think I'm a complete lunatic, rate us 5 stars on whatever podcast platform you are listening on. And if you think that this was a good episode and you agree with a lot of what I've said, please also rank us 5 stars on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. It helps others discover us. We wish you an orderly week. We hope that you enjoy aspects of the blue wave as much as I have. And we hope that you want expert dominance. Shall the experts order the disorder, Jane?
Our producer is the one, the only George McDonough, and Disorder is part of the Evergreen Podcast Network.